Following the Covenant School shooting in Nashville last week that left 3 9-year-old students and 3 staff members dead, the nation begged once again for action from legislators to protect innocent victims of gun violence. The Tennessee House is, in fact, taking action, but it's certainly not what anyone asked for. In fact, it's quite the opposite of what the people have asked for. Last Thursday, a protest was held at the Tennessee Capitol, a protest that was described by the Associated Press as being noisy, but not violent. It looks like it was just a lot of chanting and sign holding. The chant was simple: gun control now. The signs begged lawmakers to please protect us. But just to give you an idea of what these protesters are up against, the Republican that represents the Covenant School area in Congress, Andy Ogles, went viral for his 2021 Christmas card after the shooting, which featured Ogles and his family holding rifles. When asked if he regretted the photo, he said, quote, "Why would I regret a photograph with my family exercising my right to bear arms?" Similarly, Republican Representative Tim Burchett explicitly stated after the shooting, quote, "We're not going to fix it."
It's a horrible, horrible situation, and we're not going to fix it.
3 Democratic state lawmakers were present at Thursday's protest in Nashville. But then yesterday, Monday, there was another protest, this time seeing thousands of students walking out of their classrooms at exactly 10:13 a.m., the same time that the first 911 calls were placed on the day of the shooting. On the day of the shooting, investigators found that within 14 minutes, the shooter shot 152 rounds into the school. Meanwhile, Tennessee's Republican Governor Bill Lee announced legislation that would put an armed guard in every Tennessee school, allocating $140 million of public money to fund essentially more guns in school, not less. But here's where the story really takes a sinister turn. Remember those 3 Democratic state lawmakers who were involved in the protest last week? Well, yesterday, less than a week after the initial protest and the same exact day of the massive school walkout, both of which saw anti-gun action from state legislators, the Tennessee House GOP instead moved to expel those 3 Democrats from the state House for joining the protest for gun control, essentially for aligning with their constituents. And it feels like this should be a much bigger story than it is, but everyone's so focused on the Trump arraignment that I guess it's just getting lost in the muck. It's a big deal, though. The resolutions were filed by GOP lawmakers seeking to expel Democratic representatives Gloria Johnson of Knoxville, Justin Pearson of Memphis, and Justin Jones of Nashville. They're seeking to expel 3 democratically elected representatives, one from each of Tennessee's major metropolitan areas, for supporting the people who voted them into office. Without overstating the issue here, this is likened to throwing out votes. The people elected these representatives, and now the opposing party is deciding that they are not allowed to serve the people who chose them. Representative Jones took a video on the House floor last night as protesters in the gallery called the GOP members fascists. The speaker ordered the gallery to be cleared, and media was also thrown out. Jones also alleges that a Republican colleague of his pushed him and took his phone, an altercation that does indeed appear to have been caught on camera. Okay, so let's talk about fascism. Apparently, once upon a time, I had alluded to Republican fascism in a video that I'd done, and someone got mad at me for it on Instagram, telling me that I was the one sowing discord within our country. And I had to think about that because as left-leaning as I am, I don't believe in discord or disruption for the sake of sensationalism. I think we have to be very careful with our words because they hold a lot of weight, as they should. We shouldn't devalue our language because language is such a powerful tool of expression. We're not always going to get the words right, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to. So, to start with a very broad understanding, the dictionary definition of fascism is thus: a political philosophy, movement, or regime that exalts nation and often race above the individual and that stands for a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, severe economic and social regimentation, and forcible suppression of opposition. Now let's jump to an expert. Jason Stanley is a philosophy professor at Yale University who has been writing about fascism for over a decade. In December 2021, he wrote a piece for The Guardian in which he declared that the U.S. was in, quote, fascism's legal phase. He states, quote, the contemporary American fascist movement is led by oligarchical interests for whom the public good is an impediment, such as those in the hydrocarbon business, as well as a social, political, and religious movement with roots in the Confederacy. As in all fascist movements, these forces have found a popular leader unconstrained by the rules of democracy, this time in the figure of Donald Trump. He goes on to say, quote, according to the International Center for Not-for-Profit Law, 45 states have considered 230 bills criminalizing protest, with the threat of violent leftist and black rebellion being used to justify them. That this is happening at the same time that multiple electoral bills enabling a Republican state legislature majority to overturn their state's election have been enacted suggests that the true aim of bills criminalizing protest is to have a response in place to expected protests against the stealing of a future election. More succinctly, when asked why Stanley called the post-January 6th era a pivotal moment, he said this.
It's a pivotal moment because right now we're seeing the legal mechanisms to steal an election being formalized. We're seeing a system put in place that will enable permanent minority rule.
So obviously this is a much, much larger discussion to be had involving history, political philosophy, and ongoing current events, but common themes to focus on here are the suppression of opposition and the minority subjugating the majority, deliberately limiting its voice while strategically projecting its own agenda onto the same people it claims to be victimized by. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok.